Good morning. I'm drinking my protein coffee. Yes, I made the coffee this morning, so it's good. Hi, I'm Melinda. This is a Web of Stories, and I am here with my weekly wrap-up. So, what can I talk about? Well, let me start by saying I may have ordered a new Kobo Libro last night out of necessity. This is my Kobo, which has the bulk of my books on it, or at least the bulk of my books are Kobo books. It's not syncing. It's giving me a fail to sync message, which I've never gotten before. And I spent a long time yesterday trying to figure out what's going on, and I've done every troubleshooting thing, and basically it said it's dead. I can read what's currently on here, I just can't add anything to it. And when I say add things to it, I mean download books I already have to this. I only have the books that are downloaded on here. And I don't keep my entire library downloaded on this. It's a waste. I just download them. I have a number of books downloaded, but mostly I download as I need them. So I had some Amazon credits and I did it. So this year I've had to replace both e-readers. It is okay. I mean, my Kindle one, I just went for like the upgraded paperweight. It's perfect for what I need it for. And in the meantime, my library books, which normally I like to read on my Kobo, but I can read them on my Kindle, so it's not a big deal. And I am starting a library book today, so it'll be fine. Problem is I do have, although it might be downloaded on here, I'm not sure. I do have a book that I own that I need to read for our book club coming up. That's a Kobo book, so there is that. But yeah, so you'll get to see when I get my Kobo Color Libro thing. That's what happens. So that was like my big sort of reading news was I gotta upgrade this baby. I think I've had it for like 2.5, 3 years. So I kind of accepted the fact that devices, whether it's a cell phone or a laptop or an e-reader, they're basically meant to last 2 years at this point because they want you to keep updating them. Just kind of, not a happy thing, but whatever. Let's see what else. So pretty quiet week. I thought that I didn't get much done, but I just noticed that I finished 4 books this week and I have a DNF. Now I've covered some of what I'm going to talk about in my mid-month book bash, but if you haven't seen it, I'll kind of give like the highlights of the ones that I sort of talked about in those. So let me start with my DNF, and that was Middletide by Sarah Crouch. Obviously this was a book of the month book. This is I had 2 issues with this book, and it started out on a not good foot with me. And I'll start by, I covered this, but I'll do it again. There is an author's note at the beginning. Important thing to note, this is not a native writer. She's not indigenous. But she writes, while Middletide is a work of fiction, inspiration for the Squaloma people and the Sacred Mountain Reservation was drawn from the author's personal experiences with the indigenous people of Lumi and Navajo nations. The author wishes to emphasize that the Squaloma culture is fictional and, while inspired by indigenous cultures, does not represent a real indigenous nation. All aspects of reservation life are written from a place of deep respect and with the desire to explore the unique connections between the U.S. reservations and the citizens towards the towns that they touch. Just that left me not feeling good. And we already know this is not an indigenous author. I'm going to add a little bit to this. I know where this book is set. This book is set basically where my husband grew up, and which, by the way, is nowhere near the Navajo Nation. My husband grew up like in the Kitsap Peninsula, Kitsap Peninsula, Olympic Peninsula area. That's nowhere near the Navajo Nation. It is near the Lumi people, which is they're right at the top of Washington into British Columbia, but still, that's not the same thing. The other thing is, where she's setting this book, there already is an indigenous tribe. The Suquamish. There's a tribe there and a reservation. And it just felt really wrong that a non-indigenous writer would make up a fictional indigenous tribe and set it where an indigenous tribe already exists. That just felt really wrong to me. And yes, indigenous characters are viewpoint characters, major viewpoint characters in here, which again, clearly didn't quite understand that, not so cool. Now, I'm not one of those people who says like, you can't, if you're not indigenous or you're not this group or that group, you can't write about them. But if you're writing about their experience from their eyes, which is something you cannot have experienced, that's different. So there's all that. She's also not from that area, which tells me she didn't do that much research. Secondly, I got about 50 pages into this, and I realized that as I was reading it, like in my mind, I was thinking how I would rewrite that sentence to make it sound better. So that was, once I realized I did that, it was like, this is not going to be a book for me. So this was a DNF. Okay. Next book I finished was The Merchant of Venice. There's a whole video on that one. I liked it. I talk a lot about the anti-Semitism in it. There have been some really great comments. I'm sorry, I'm behind in comments about it. It is very anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitism is not an easy one to kind of boil down. It's not like, oop, that's anti-Semitic, that's bad. It's not like Agatha Christie. I feel bad that I always pull her up, but hey, it's there. It's really involved, it's really woven in there. And it's not, Shakespeare clearly himself was a person of his time, and I hate, the of the time thing. I'm only bringing that up in that what he wrote that would not have seemed at all out of the ordinary for people watching it, for him writing it. So it's a condemnation of the society, if that makes sense. And I'd love to have more discussions about this, and I will get to those comments, and we are talking about it on my Discord if you want to join. So there we go. The next book I finished was Sandwich by Catherine Newman, which I also talked about Mid-Month Book Bash, which I just thought was a delightful book. I related to it in a lot of ways. It's a nice summer read. It's probably not for everybody, but that's fine. Most books aren't for everybody. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. You can go watch Mid-Month Book Bash if you want to know what I thought about that. So let me get to the two books. This is going to be a short video. That's okay. I'm trying to make my videos a little shorter anyway. The two books that I did finish that I haven't talked about. So the first one is this short story collection, Temple Folk by Aaliyah Bilal. So this came out last year, and I actually had the paperback on pre-order, and it finally came in, and I immediately started it. Now I want to make a little complaint about the actual book, the physical book. No, I did not I don't have a good excuse. I did not roll the covers on this one. I was careful with it because immediately I could tell the binding was bad on it. So I don't know if my paperback copy is a fluke and it has bad binding, but if you get a paperback copy, be careful of the binding. But that, of course, has nothing to do with the writing. I just wanted to put that out there. I was interested in reading this one because the Black Muslim experience, the African-American Muslim experience, I should say, is not one that I'm super familiar with. And I know that it is distinct. I mean, Islam, like Christianity and Judaism, has a range of different experiences, and I just wasn't familiar with that one. So I was really interested in, and this is like Nation of Islam. And so I was very interested in reading this. Like most short story collections, this was a little bit up and down. Like there were stories that worked for me and stories that didn't. When the stories worked for me, they really worked for me. I really love the last story that's in here, which is the longest. But at least she put it at the end and not in the middle. But what I started to notice was the stories where the viewpoint character was female worked far better for me than the stories where the viewpoint character was male. And I don't know if that's me or her. I don't know if that's me just relating more, or if maybe the viewpoint isn't as well done with the male character. I don't know. I ended up giving this a B+, which is still really good. I do recommend this. I think the writing is actually really good. And as I said, the stories that I thought were good were really, really, really good. I also think this is a book I probably will want to read again in the future. Maybe it needs multiple readings. I don't know, but it was definitely worth reading. I just, it's also a debut. So there you go. And it's always interesting when debuts are short story collections, because usually short story collections are what established authors get to publish. So yeah, it's interesting. I would recommend it definitely if you are interested in reading about the African-American Muslim experience. So last book I finished it last night. And I mentioned this in today, because I'm doing this on Friday, today's Trippy Reads 5 on Fridays. And that's A Ghost of Caribou by Alice Henderson, which fortunately was already loaded on my Kobo. And I'm caught up with the series, the 4th book, which I've seen 2 titles float around. One, I can't remember what it is, but it doesn't follow the title formula, so I hope that one's wrong. And the other one is, I think, A Prowl of Panthers, which does sound really good. This series, you have to go in knowing you're going to be suspending some disbelief. You learn a lot about whatever the target is a bad word, whatever the focus animal is. So the first one was wolverines, and the second one was polar bears, and this one is caribou, and the next one is panthers. So you learn a lot, and that's interesting. I will say this one, it felt a little bit more info dumpy to me than the other ones, which was a little unfortunate. This one kind of felt a little bit like she bit off more than she could chew, unfortunately. You have to suspend your disbelief. As I said, it's kind of trippy because there's weird things that happen in these books. Not weird, supernatural, just weird, like what? And this one has its share of it, but the weirdest thing has a very sort of hand-wavy resolution, which I found very disappointing for what it was. So there's that. I just felt like she bit off too much with this one. I will say the last part was very propulsive. The last, I don't know how long because I read it digitally, but what I read last night, I could not put down because it's like action, action, action. It is a little MacGyver-y in places, which is fine because that's kind of the thing that you expect from this character. So this was not my favorite. I think I was thinking about this. I remember A Solitude of Wolverines, the first one, very well. I actually don't remember that much plot-wise of A Blizzard of Polar Bears. So I think this is probably number 2 out of 3 for me, like preference. But I do feel like there's a big jump between number 1 and number 2. I am still going to continue reading on with the series though, because I like the setup of it. I like that there's a wildlife aspect to it, and I do learn things from it. And they are, when she gets going, it's really, really propulsive. I just felt this one was got a little out of her control. That was my feeling on it. But it still was trippy. I still stand by the trippiness. Yes. So that is what I finished this week. Yeah, so this is going to be a short video. It's summer. We don't do that much during the summer. So I don't have that much to report. And then, when the kids go back to school, I see, well, the kids were in school all day, so I don't have that much to report. It's just the way it goes. But yes. So yeah, at this point, I have a choice. I can end this video like a normal person, or I can continue to babble for 5 minutes. I am going to do something different and choose the former. So I'm going to end this video now. That was my reading week. Let me know what you guys are reading. If you've read any of these books, what your thoughts were on them. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.